at the High Line, and we're here with Kate Kendall, CEO and founder of CloudPeeps. Kate, it's fabulous to have you. Welcome to New York, or I should say welcome back to New York, because you did live here once, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's lovely to be back, and thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's a gorgeous day. It's really turned it on. I have to say, this is actually my first time at the High Line. Can you believe it?
No, it's like my favorite place. It's like the first place I always like to come when I'm back in town, so I can't believe it.
It's just beautiful. I'm walking around here. Thank you for introducing it to me. It's fabulous to meet you. So I have to start off by saying we are with Kate Kendall. She is Australian and she's also of British origin, but she's not Kate Kendall from Stingers. Do you get that quite a lot?
She's actually in Neighbours now.
Oh, she's in Neighbours.
Yeah,
Oh.
it was, and I get tweets for her sometimes.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
So Kate Kendall is an actress in Australia with a prominent name, obviously, so I'm sure it happens quite a lot. No, this is Kate Kendall, the businesswoman and CEO of CloudPeeps. So I wanted to speak to you about CloudPeeps because it's extraordinary that you've started it. You're now here in the US, which is just phenomenal in itself. CloudPeeps is a marketplace, right, for freelancers, if you will. It's to match, kind of like a matchmaker for companies and freelancers. How did it come about? Were you a freelancer once yourself and you decided there's a huge problem here, I'm going to solve it?
Yeah, so I was basically on both sides of the equation, because originally I was freelancing about 6 years ago. Right. So I had sold a lot of my stuff, and I was doing the whole digital nomad thing, and I was living off Airbnb for a couple of years.
As you do, we've all been there. I still do that.
Yeah. And so I was finding that I was getting a lot of opportunities, but I was noticing that a lot of companies were needing community managers and social media managers, which is how CloudPeeps kind of started in that vertical. And that there was lots of work, but it wasn't being found in traditional sites or, what I like to call first generation freelance marketplaces.
Right.
So this is really about a community driven or a network driven approach. It's a lot more about quality professionals that I knew in my network. And then fast forward a few years, I was working on my first company, thefetch.com. And when I was building that, I was bootstrapping it, so I had a limited kind of, resources to work with. And I was just noticing that it's really hard to find reliable, trustworthy freelance team members.
Yes.
And I started using a couple of services like Zirtual.com, and that was my foray into virtual assistants online. And it was just a really great curated experience. So it really got me excited about an idea that I had back in 2011, which was CloudPeeps. So in 2014, kicked it off, and that's kind of how it started.
You were definitely ahead of the curve at like 2011 to have this concept, well, at least to start conceptualizing it and then to form it in 2014. Tell me, to that note, did you soft launch in Australia first? Was that kind of your beta testing ground?
Well, I was actually based in New York at the time, so I'd moved here with the Fetch. And then, so in beta in 2014, it launched out of New York. So,
well, there you go, guys. A true and tested one in New York. And what was the experience like for that, doing it in New York? And can I ask you, why did you choose New York? Obviously, there's a ton of places you can choose.
Yeah, well, originally I'd chosen New York because I was doing the Fetch, and it was a media tech company. So without a doubt, I think that running a company that has anything to do with media or publishing, this is the place to be.
Absolutely,
But then I changed the companies, and I was working on CloudPeeps, which is what took me back to the San Francisco Bay Area, and that's why I'm based there now. And a lot of our advisors and investors are all out of the West Coast.
Okay.
So I appreciate both the ecosystems, but based in San Francisco now.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what are, I guess, the benefits or hindrances of being in Silicon Valley? I can imagine it's super competitive, but obviously you have such a great community there. So yeah, what are the obvious benefits, and what would you say might be a bit on the downside?
Yeah, so I think the biggest benefits are just access to someone who's been there and done that. So a lot of my angel investors are entrepreneurs themselves. They've had exits, they've built teams. Like any question that you have at all, you know that you can get someone to kind of who has experience and advice.
Yes.
Capital, I mean, the majority of capital is still out of the valley. That's changing, but it's just, if you really want to kind of build that, Series A to B and on, like, you really do have those amazing people there that can help you through your whole company's journey.
Right, absolutely.
And I think the hindrances are kind of rising now because the cost of living in the Bay Area is meaning it's really hard to attract great talent at competitive salaries. So a lot of people now are looking to remote work, which is why CloudPeeps, works well. And then also it can turn into a little bit sometimes of an echo chamber where everyone's working on problems that they perceive to be, big problems in the world, yet there are a lot of things that we can be working on. So it is less diverse in some capacity, especially compared to somewhere like New York, where you can tech is really embedded in everything rather than being the one main thing and vertical.
Interesting. No, that's fascinating because obviously, ParlayMe, we're situated in New York and Sydney and LA, but obviously San Fran is a natural progression for us. So it's always good to know how that works. And obviously when we're consulting with some of our startups, where are the best, what are the pluses and the minuses? I know that you started off as a journalist as such. Tell me, how did that help your career movements in regards to your networks and just kind of, being a writer yourself?
Yeah, so I started in consumer and then I went to business journalism.
Right.
And I was working for Marketing Magazine, which is similar to Ad Age in the States. And it was just a really fantastic opportunity because I was really looking at the whole world of what was happening, trends, innovation, tech. And then from there I got really interested in tech. So if I didn't start as a journalist, I probably would have never kind of gotten into all of this. But I think being a journalist it allows you to form an opinion and have a stance, and I think that's really important for women when you want to speak up and have a voice and be heard. I mean, there's lots of tools online and mediums exploding and everyone's kind of elevating their voice, but I think before that to be a journalist you have to kind of put yourself in the fire line, and I think that's a really healthy thing for then being in as a CEO. And as a bit of a purist with journalism, I think a lot of people care about ethics and integrity. So journalism, and some people would say, with recent things like Gawker and that, but I believe that journalism at its heart is around doing good and having a strong code of conduct. And I think as I grow the company and as challenges come around, to live your life by that integrity or those ethics is really important. And I think we would see a lot more healthy and diverse companies if we had a lot more leaders that had kind of almost come out of that code of conduct.
Absolutely. And you have your parameters and set your boundaries and make you a stand, and that's what journalists are great at doing. In your trajectory of being a journalist, what were some of the moments where you're like those aha moments where you're like, because we all have them. I know being a journalist can be, it's a passion project a lot of the time. Let's be honest, you don't get paid copious amounts of money. Sometimes you do if you work for big publications. But what was the aha moment you were like, this is what I love to do?
So in early days, I was an editorial assistant, and then I was an online editor, and that was a permanent kind of role. So I was always kind of, I was quite fortunate, I always think, because I was never the struggling writer as such.
Okay, good. You're always well positioned.
And I was working in magazines, and I felt like I had a really amazing opportunity to get involved in magazines. And from there, one of the aha moments or the personal kind of parts of my career that I think I was pleased with or grateful for is I was promoted to head of digital for niche media. So that was when I was looking after content, audience development, developers, and that was really the kind of management role that that I then left to go to Silicon Valley for.
Hey, they always get you, Silicon Valley. They always take our best talent. Well, you do have a blog which you maintain, and it's you are a writer, and I saw that General Assembly actually put in the top 10 for that startup founders, top 10 list to read. So that must have been amazing when you got that news.
Yeah, so I still blog a little bit on kakendall.com, and I'm planning to do a lot more this year because I think it's really important, just as I was saying before, about having a voice. As I've become busier and more expectations with being a CEO, I've also become a little bit quieter online, and I think that people want to hear the real stories. They don't just always want the
sugar-coated.
Yeah, and so this year is really about getting into being more vulnerable and sharing more online.
Fantastic. I love that.